Hi. So the story that I have today is called The Orphan and His Grandmother. And it starts off that long ago there was an orphan boy who lived with his grandmother. They were very poor, and they were actually so poor that they didn't even have spoons or bowls to eat from. And as the orphan boy grew up, day by day, he realized this. And whenever he would go play with his other friends or in the village, he would realize that they were very poor. And one day he said, "Grandma, it's not very good that we live like this. I would like to go on a trading trip so that I can make some money and we can have things." But the grandmother said, "Ah, grandson, you are all that I have left, and besides, you're all alone. You couldn't go to foreign lands. You would get lost." But the orphan boy insisted, "But grandma, I have to go. I have to make us some money. Fix up my food for the trip, and I'll go." But the grandmother was very reluctant, for he was ignorant of many things. One day, though, as she was combing through his hair for lice, she was crying because she was so distraught over him leaving. And the orphan asked, "Why are you crying?" And she responded, "I don't want you to go away. You are still small and can't look out for yourself." But the boy said, "No, no, no, don't worry. I will be all right, and I can handle myself. Everything will be fine." So the orphan boy pulled out a strand of his grandmother's leg of hair, pulled out a strand of hair, and left home without anything else because there was nothing else to take. They were so poor. So later, he arrived at a village and entered a house there. He found work and a woman that was spinning thread. Then the boy sat down with the rice pounder and laid his grandmother's hair on the edge. A little while later, a chicken came by, and with a flap of his wings, the hair was lost. When the hair disappeared, the boy started to cry. He made such a fuss about the hair and blamed the family for it. Finally, they couldn't get him to calm down, and so they finally said, "Fine, take a chicken. If you're that distraught over it, take a chicken and leave." And the boy did take a chicken and left. So then, after some time, he arrived at another village and entered another house. It so happened that the house there was during a funeral or a wake, and there was a body laid out on one side of the room. So later that night, when everyone who was watching the body fell asleep, the orphan boy killed his chicken. He pulled out all the feathers and stuffed them in the dead man's mouth, and then scattered some of them around the room. Then he got rid of the chicken. The next morning, he made such a fuss about the dead man eating his chicken, which is impossible because he's dead. He doesn't have to eat. And finally, the people responded, "Look, nobody ate your chicken but the dead man, right? If this dead man ate your chicken, you can do with it as you want. Just take and go." So, after the boy wrapped up the body and he left. Then, after more time had passed, he arrived at another village with the dead man outside, and he left the dead man's body outside the village. He covered it with leaves that the cows liked to eat. Then he went into the village and told everybody that he had arrived and that his grandfather was just taking a rest outside. And then he made sure that all the cows and everything were locked up. This way they couldn't harm his grandfather. Then, the next morning, the cows came out and trampled all over the body. The orphan took the whole village to come see this body that was already dead, but they don't know that. So, the orphan boy was again distraught over the idea that his poor grandfather had died because everyone's cows trampled over him. So, the orphan boy demanded compensation. And so, the villagers said, "Okay, fine. Take the cows that trampled over your grandfather." And so the orphan boy picked that cow and that cow and that cow. And then, after a while, he left to go back to his home village. Once he arrived, his grandmother came outside. She thought it looked like her grandson, but all of the rich people said, "That's not your grandson. He has too many cows. He's too rich. Those are our sons coming back." But when they got nearer to him, they did see it was the orphan, and they were all ashamed. Later, once again, more time had passed. The boy became the richest in the area. This goes to show that no one is supposed to look down on the orphan. God helps the rich, the poor, and all who have equal opportunity. And for that story, that's it. So the aspect of ritual in a story is actually, when I think of ritual, I think of the arm movements in the Mandarin plate in one of the videos that we watched, or I think of the manners and social cues of like having tea in Japanese family. So like for me, what I did was the tapping, the classic sign for time passing, and I used that as my ritual, so that every time had passed in the story, that was the ritual. That's how I showed it, was a physical manifestation, which is sometimes a ritual, which is how that came to be. But yeah, that's it. Thank you.